Ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to the Imsa 2018 State of the Series program. I'd like to welcome you all here to Road America. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the stage President of Imsa, Scott Atherton, and the voice of Imsa Radio, John Hindhoff.
Hey, good turnout. Squeeze on in from the back, everybody, and make sure that everyone can see. Good evening. Welcome along to those of you here and who are tuned in either on Imsa Radio, RS2 around the world, or on the Imsa Facebook Live app, Imsa TV, Imsa.com. So many ways that people are joining us around the world, and we're bringing together a huge community of sports car enthusiasts and stakeholders right the way around the globe. Thanks for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is a busy weekend and this is a Friday night. I promise you we will rattle through what is quite a busy announcement schedule as quickly as we can, and to help me do that, please welcome Scott Atherton.
Thank you, John.
We're going to let our hair down a little bit tonight. I'm sorry about that.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, well, yes, well, I am in super Ligera mode at the moment. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, Scott, a few people here that it would be remiss not to recognise before we get underway.
Absolutely. A couple of housekeeping chores here. We don't often get them, certainly not in the front row, but our chairman, our founder, our guiding light, Jim Francis here, his daughter Amy as well. Jim, thank you for joining us. And of course, founder, CEO, yeah, for Jim. Founder and CEO of WeatherTech, David McNeil. Cooper next to him. Guys, thank you for joining us as well. And president of Road America, George Brugentheis, is here somewhere. He's hiding in the dark, but there he is in the back. George, great to have you. Place has never looked better.
It might surprise you to know that we're not going to do things in a traditional way tonight. Who would have thought that with me sitting up here? We have some quite interesting announcements tonight, and Scott assures me that it's something that I haven't even seen yet as well as we go through this, so it's going to be a surprise to me and probably you as well. A lot of changes for 2019, a lot of stability as well. The changes mainly coming about because relationships have come to an end. And let's start with our television and our partners at Fox.
Yeah, we're going to begin tonight, I would say, in a non-traditional way, but it's for good reason, and this will all come together. I promise you, just work with us. We've been very fortunate. We've been blessed to have the last 5 years with a television partner at Fox. I think everybody in this business knows this is a very difficult product to cover on television. You know, our court, our field can be 4 miles long. Our events can last for 24 hours, and Fox has done a fantastic job. Greg Oldham is here, and Greg, I just want to, on behalf of all of us, the fans, and certainly all of us from Imsa, just want to say thank you for all that you've done. Thank you.
So for 2019, we start a new relationship, and it's going to look something like this.
Lights, camera, action.
The Washington Capitals are the Stanley Cup champions.
Justify as the Triple Crown winner. Manchester City are Premier League champions. Mark Truex Jr. is the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion.
Joseph Newgarden is the Verizon IndyCar Series champion.
Have a nice trouble-free 24 hours.
Welcome to one of the greatest spectacles in motorsport.
The televisual gods are clearly against us at the moment, so let's go to the key points of what will be happening in 2019. So guys, we'll just skip the video for the time being and go through and say welcome to NBC Sports, the home of sports for us as well for 2019 at Imsa. What's the keys here?
Well, use your theater of the mind for a moment, and the video was very exciting in that it showcased all of the world-class sports content that NBC features. The Triple Crown, Sunday night NFL football, NASCAR, IndyCar, the Indy 500, and beginning in 2019.
English Premier League?
Yeah, but
that's soccer. You know, football where you have a ball and you kick it with your feet.
all right.
Just in case.
Notre Dame football too.
Okay.
So anyway, the bottom line is it's now the home of Imsa, and you see on the screen what that means for us. We've been welcomed into the home of motorsport. Network television coverage is the holy grail for any sports property, and for us to have increased the amount of network coverage that we'll have next year, I can't say enough about that, an 80% increase over the coverage that we've had this year. Now, the majority of our programming is going to be on NBCSN. I just did the homework today, a little research. 86 million homes across the United States receive NBCSN, so very widely distributed, great connectivity there, and it doesn't end at the WeatherTech Championship. Our challenge platform, and even potentially some of our single make and other platforms that run under the Imsa sanction will also be on NBCSN.
And as far as the digital side of things is concerned?
Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. There's a lot more to talk about.
Okay.
But yeah, full coverage, live, flag to flag, through the NBC Sports app, and because of their coverage of the Olympics, there's an enormous number of people around the world that have the app, and also full live streaming, flag to flag at NBC.com. So TV anywhere, all the time. The ability, I've just been told, I don't have a bug in my ear, but I might as well. If you want to see this video, and it's about 30 seconds, it's worthwhile, let's play it.
Lights, camera, action.
The Washington Capitals are the Stanley Cup champions.
Justify as the Triple Crown winner. Manchester City are Premier League champions. Mark Jr. is the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion.
Joseph Newgarden is the Verizon IndyCar Series champion.
Have a nice trouble-free 24 hours.
Welcome to one of the greatest spectacles in motorsport.
Just as I described it.
And English Premier League. And the clip that we had there, of course, for football was somebody scoring with their head. Can you believe it? Set me up massively there. So that's great. It's dynamic. It gives us the opportunity, Scott, to bring some great new eyes to what's going on in the Imsa Championships. Shall we move on to some dates? Is it the right time to do that? We normally do that at the end.
Yeah, the highlight tonight will not be the schedule, because we're going to take care of the schedule front and center. It becomes a foundational element for the rest of the program tonight, and you'll understand why in a moment. But if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think videos go into the millions. And the reason why we wanted to introduce the NBC connection is you're about to see the 2019 WeatherTech Sports Car Championship schedule and the connectivity that schedule has with NBC. So let's roll the video.
Welcome to modern day endurance racing.
This is being raced as if it was a sprint race.
They're going to win the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
And everyone has said it's going to get intense, and we're seeing it right now. There's a long, long way to go, but these guys want the lead of this race in the baddest way.
Pull down the belts just maybe one or two more times. Side by side across the line.
Cadillac and Corvette win at Long Beach. It's tight, it's twisty, it's technical. It's the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
I'm loving the atmosphere Imsa have brought here with this festival. We're just outside downtown of Detroit.
The orders at the start of the year were win the championship and win the Detroit Grand Prix.
Welcome to one of the most famous racetracks in the world, Watkins Glen International.
Great weather, fantastic racing, wheel to wheel. Competition is hot as well as the weather here. This is a fast circuit, meaning no slip-ups if you want to be in championship contention. A 1.5-mile track that tests every metal, every fibre of the drivers and teams.
Welcome to America's Nürburgring.
Great history, great racing behind us, and great racing in the now and the future as well. A huge crowd of GT enthusiasts. It's tricky, it's challenging, and the drivers absolutely love it.
This track is one of the epics on worldwide motorsports.
It's a drag race, we've seen this before. Renger van der Zande has got through. A finale is always something to celebrate. Motul Petit Le Mans. It's 10 hours, not 10 laps here. That's a mindset. These are golden days indeed for Imsa and for endurance racing in North America.
It's time. Let's go sports car racing.
Sports car racing in 2019 is Imsa. I think that's worth a round of applause, don't you, ladies and gentlemen? For those who were just listening, and for those of you who didn't get to scribble all that down, you've got the opportunity to have a look at this slide here in the room. Daytona, Sebring, Long Beach, they're all there, all the big start of the season, and then to Mid-Ohio, Detroit Grand Prix. There's a little asterisk next to that one.
Yeah, I would say the big news on our schedule for 2019 is there's no big news. This is the best tracks, the best promoters. We've said it many times, we'll say it one more time. One of the most valuable elements coming out of the merger was the fact that we could combine these two schedules together. This is about date equity, it's about stability. The asterisk that you see on the Belle Isle Detroit Grand Prix is indicative of nothing that would jeopardize the event. It's a timing issue. They're waiting for the final approval from the Michigan Department of Resources, Natural Resources. Simply a timing issue, maybe in the next day or 2 weeks at the most, that'll be resolved. But we got their blessing to go ahead and announce the event and list it as it is. So a couple of 1 week differences, that's it. VIR and WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca moved by a week. That's driven by an event at Pebble Beach, I think, that affects the car week, which has a knock-on effect, but we're good. And the stability here, I think it falls into the category of don't fix it if it's not broken.
Yeah, date equity, like that. If it's St. Patrick's Day weekend or nearabouts, then we should be at Sebring. If it's second week of October, then we're going to be at Motul Petit Le Mans. Fans get that in their mind. TV viewers get that in their mind. Works for me. And talking of TV, by the way, if you weren't quite quick enough to jot down where each of those particular races are going to be, here's the graphic for you to have a look at. For those of you who can't see the pictures, who are not in the room, who are listening further afield, all the details for all of this will be on imsa.com later on, but we still want you to listen and be a part of this. What I see there, Scott, is the Rainbow Peacock, which even for somebody from the UK, means network television on NBC. Second half of the season, replete with it, including the last 2 races of the year.
The other key element here is the stability of a single network coverage, even for the long distance races. So those that have been frustrated by a jump from here to there, keeping in mind full flag-to-flag coverage of all races through the NBC app, NBCSN app, and as well as on the website. To your point, the Peacock does in fact mean network television. And let's think about this for a second. It means that we will be likely, if history is our guide, crowning our champion at the Motul Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta live on NBC network television. And the lead into that being the race prior at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, live flag to flag on NBC. So the ability to build that audience to the end of our season, the crescendo to the finale. We would love to take credit for scripting this, but it just worked out. So we'll take it.
Tomorrow, you're going to join Jeremy Shaw and myself on Imsa Radio just before 10 o'clock for what we're calling Ask I'm S. Atherton. That's the hashtag. So for those of you either here or further afield who want to make notes whilst we go through, we've still got a bit to go through here clearly, ask questions, points arising, or indeed make suggestions. Scott, you're happy to take those tomorrow when we're live on RS2 Imsa Radio?
Questions are always welcome, but so are suggestions. I would say some of the biggest ideas we've had in developing technology, in changing the way we operate our events, have actually come from our fans. If anybody appreciates the leader lights that are on the sides of most of our cars now, that was a suggestion that was written in on a sheet of paper back in the American Le Mans Series era that created those 3 lights on the side of the car. We've come a long way since then, but it was a fan suggestion that was the catalyst behind that.
Let's get into some numbers. People like numbers. These are real numbers. This is empirical data on what are clearly the key metrics. Take us through the highlights, Scott.
Well, it's a data-driven world that we live in, more so than ever before. We're not immune from that, and for good reason. We've got some good numbers to talk about. It used to be said jokingly, now I think it's more of a statement of fact, that in the television environment, flat is the new up. And in our situation here, this year versus last, we don't have the same broadcast connectivity in terms of the amount of network TV, the amount of Fox Sports 1. So we were dealt some cards that weren't as good as the year before. And even with that, the fact that we're up a little year over year is actually very strong for any industry to be ahead of where they were a year ago, same type of broadcast. We're feeling good about that. The digital, I mean, this has been exploding. It continues to. We're not unique in that regard. It's the way things are going. The number of people that are on the website that are spending more and more time. I think our average minutes are up substantially year over year, which tells us the content's good, it's quality, it's sticky, as they say. And social, I mean, you see the numbers there. It's growing exponentially. The number of people that are consuming our product digitally and through our social channels just continues to trend up significantly so, and I don't see that changing. We're spending a lot. There's a lot of investment that goes into keeping us, at least among the leaders in this category. It's a very expensive proposition to do that, but you see the numbers, it's worthwhile.
4.4 million total visitors on digital, 459,000 followers. They are followers who are involved and engrossed in what's going on. They're not just hanging around there. They're not robots. They are actually interacting. I've noticed on this when we looked at this earlier on, and I meant to put it in my notes, but I'm going to mention it now. She's going to put our timing off a little bit, so I apologise. This is through round 8 of 12 this year, so more to come on this.
A lot more to come. Every time we race, these numbers go up. And when you think about how things are arranged right now in terms of the championship, and it's knotted up across the board. So by the time we get to the end of the year, these numbers will be substantially ahead of this.
And the end of the year is 12 rounds of the championship, but 13 events this year for Imsa, because there's an additional weekend. 13 will be lucky for someone, and particularly the fans.
Before we dive deep into 19, we want to cover off the last event for 18. And I guess when we're in the winner's circle celebrating, we will be able to say, and that at Motul Petit Le Mans I'm referring to, we can say, but wait, there's more. Because we are announcing, and it has been announced today, you're seeing the logo for the first time, the Michelin Sports Car Encore at Sebring. And this is a first-time event. It's a bit of a unique format, and it is intended to give select categories that are currently competing within the Imsa family of platforms the opportunity to race again in November, but also to enable teams that are not currently racing with Imsa but have cars that are acceptable to come sample it. So you see what I'm referring to. It's going to include the ACO spec LMP3 cars that currently run in our Imsa Prototype Challenge, the FIA GT3 cars, which is our GTD category, and really a very broadly distributed car that runs in numerous different championships, not only in the United States, but around the world. The GT4 cars that are in our current Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge, and TCR, which is a new addition that's growing rapidly. You see the driver pairings and the makeup and how we will organize this race. The goal here is to have a bit more of a relaxed setting, but still a very professional Imsa experience by every measure. And we believe that the combination of a race at Sebring, perhaps for teams that haven't had an opportunity to race at Sebring before, but there's another element here that could really be significant, and that is for teams, it will be the first opportunity to race, to compete on the Michelin tires that will be the same tires that will be used in 2019. So the ability to get a full race weekend, to get a 4-hour race and gather all that data on the tires that will be in use in 19, hopefully that's attractive.
Scott, this is an extra event, so it is going to be extra expense for the teams that come to Sebring. We accept that. We think it's worth it. We think it's worthwhile. But bearing that in mind, it's quite a compact schedule.
Credit where credit's due. This is the brainchild of our CEO, Ed Bennett, who I was remiss in not introducing before. But Ed has had this idea and frankly wouldn't take no for an answer. And the idea was to create a very efficient weekend. So it's been value engineered, so to speak, that teams could get in and out very efficiently. You see the schedule on the screen right now. There's also some news that's, I think, being announced tonight. Some of you may already be aware. But in addition to that 4-hour race that will be the encore event on Sunday, you see that there is a Mazda Global MX-5 Cup, 2 races over the course of the weekend. They will be running on BF Goodrich tires, so a sister company relationship to our friends at Michelin. You see the entries opening August 21st, and the opportunity to get more information, go to the competitor section on the Imsa.com website. There's a lot more information there.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Mazda racing on Friday, practicing on Friday, racing on Saturday and Sunday. High noon, 4 classes, 4 hours. Something that we've not seen before, and some classes that don't race together normally as well in IMSA competition. It's going to be a unique event down at Sebring. Can't wait for that. Always a good idea to go to Sebring, particularly at that time of the year. Let's talk about the series outside of the 2 main events that we have. We'll talk about those in detail in a wee while. But IMSA is not just about the 2 big races. There's a lot of sanctioning going on and work going on behind the scenes. It's the prototypes, first of all. New category, relatively new category in terms of the machinery that have been used, but already some changes in the first couple of seasons here, driven by the competitors, the stakeholders themselves, in the terms of what we've done this year with the race format.
We've had quite an evolution that's taken place within this category, the IMSA Prototype Challenge, currently presented by Mazda. 2018 will mark the end of the 2-category, 2-class format within this championship. We have had the IMSA Prototype Lights car, the open cockpit prototype, as well as the ACO spec LMP3 car. So beginning in 19, the category will be entirely focused on LMP3 cars, which you see the picture of before you now. And to your point, the evolution of this championship has been quite rapid in recent times. It was, for many years, a 2 45-minute race format on any particular race weekend. As a result of a lot of feedback from the stakeholders that were involved in this championship, we evolved that this year, beginning with a single hour and 45-minute race that's open to a single driver in the car or 2 drivers in the car, up to the team to decide. And that's going to evolve yet again next year. And if we can go to the next slide, this is the only championship that we're able to announce the full schedule tonight. That's one of the risks of going out the first couple of days in August with next year's calendar is, if you've ever been in a sanctioning body situation and you've announced a schedule without having all of your agreements, you swear you will never ever do it again. So we've learned those lessons. But for 19, you see the events.
Well, I've just 2 3-hour races here, Scott. So we evolved to 1 hour 45, and now at the Raw before the Rolex 24 in January, and in July at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, 2 3-hour races. Now, whose idea is this then?
It bubbles up from the paddock, and they had so much fun at 1 hour and 45, they wanted to see what it was like at 3 hours. For these cars, candidly, that's what they're built for. Mm-hmm. They're designed, they're ready, they'll be good to go for these races. We launched for the first time ever this year a race at the Roar. Typically, it's just been testing. It was very well received by the competitors. I don't know if you haven't been there, there's about 3,000 Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts that are camping in the infield. They loved it. So we're coming back, going to race again at the Roar, this time in a 3-hour format, do it again up in Canada. The rest of the race is the currently traditional 145.
Sebring, Mid-Ohio, the 3 hours at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, VIR for 1 hour 45, and then finishing off at Mathilde Petit Le Mans in October again at 1 hour 45 minutes. You mentioned that we're not going to have schedules for the other championships we're going to talk about. They are GT championships. The first one on the list is one of my favourites. The Lamborghini Huracans, the Evos that we've been running this year, are just fantastic looking, sounding, and if you get close enough to them, smelling cars. What? You don't smell race cars? Come on. Really? That distinctive smell of a car warming up in the morning? I can't believe it. It's the 10th year of Super Trofeo. We've not quite had them for this long, already becoming a fan favourite and a competitor favourite.
We were around on day one. In fact, some would even say before day one, because it was a very humble beginning for this championship within our space, but it has grown rapidly. And you look at this image and you could say, oh, that must have been staged. No, that's turn one, Watkins Glen, after the green flag. And
moments after this photograph was taken, my head exploded in the booth.
You and many others. So that schedule will be announced in the very near future. I can guarantee anyone that's in the room that's connected with this championship, you will not be disappointed. It will be a very robust calendar.
Endurance racing, GT racing, if you're going to talk those subjects, you've got to say Porsche. They celebrated their 70th birthday, a couple of months ago, and have been an integral part of Imsa, well, pretty much forever. And not one, but two championships here for Porsche.
Yeah, we worked very closely. I think it's the only example within the Porsche space where a sanctioning body and Porsche worked together, launching the championships many years ago. The GT3 Cup USA by Yokohama has always been a stalwart example of single-make competition. No exception today. If you watch qualifying, you know what I'm referring to. And the same applies to the Canadian version. Canada probably has the most growth opportunity, and we recognize that. There's some new people, some new management, a lot of good positive momentum there. They're all competing on the same tires, so the opportunity for these two championships to join forces on selected weekends, which will be part of the plan.
Good, I like those.
Yeah, it plays well. And I would say in both examples, both the US and Canada, the young driving talent, the career-minded drivers that are in these championships is remarkable. And if you want to see tomorrow's stars, walk out to the fence tomorrow, you'll see them.
Yeah, and I love those joint events because the rivalry between the Canadian runners, the Canadian Championship runners and the US Championship runners is real. And I know Jeremy and I say, well, that pass doesn't make any difference because he's going to still take full points in his own yeah, forget that. It's all about bragging rights over those weekends. Great stuff. The fourth of the GT categories that we're going to look at, the Single Manufacturer Championship, is Ferrari Challenge. And we don't get to see them too much on the WeatherTech weekends because that's a slightly different business model, but going great guns at the moment. And in fact, I think Cooper's leading the championship.
You said it all. Yeah, they have a different approach. So unlike the other championships that pride themselves, as do we, on the fact that they run with the WeatherTech weekends, the Ferrari Challenge typically likes to run on their own weekends. They take down a racetrack. They do their own thing on their own terms. We are very involved with the sanctioning of the event, but we don't interact that much. You're right. Cooper's leading the championship. I think there's 2 races to go. That's Cooper in P1 coming at you in the picture. So all we're going to say is, Cooper, 2 races. Let's get her done. All
okay,
right.
that sounds reasonable. So all of those championships in rude health and continue through into 2018. Let's move on to the marquee championships. 2 of them to talk about, WeatherTech to talk about in a little while. First of all, the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge. Jeremy and I used to say that was one of the best kept secrets in North American motor racing. We can't say that anymore because too many people have cottoned onto it. The promotion's been excellent. A lot of that down to the yellow and black of Continental, who are another one of our partners that we're going to shake hands with at the end of the year and say thank you very much and please come back another time.
All true, and I would say this is one of the more difficult things to apply the appropriate words to express the appreciation. I can't speak to the early days back in Grand Am when Continental first came onto the scene, but I can talk to the last 5 years that I've been a part of it, and clearly a benchmark partner by every measure. Another example, as was the case with Fox, when the word went out that there was changes coming, no change in the fulfillment, no change in the professionalism. Absolutely the same applies to Continental. I don't know if Travis Roffler is in the room. Travis has been the lead from Continental on this business from the start. And I know I speak for Jim, for Ed, for the entire paddock that we want to express our genuine appreciation for all that Continental has done.
the series will continue into 2019. It has a new look, a new name, and for the first time, we're looking at the new logo here.
Exactly right. Yeah, it no doubt will pick up right where it leaves off. What is today the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge now becomes the Imsa Michelin Pilot Challenge. You see the colors and the bib given a good wave. Clearly, Michelin, as you can tell already just in tonight's presentation, is spreading their wings rather significantly within the Imsa space, and we couldn't be more pleased by that. A lot of good things to come, a lot of good to talk about here as we dig a little deeper into this championship.
Not least, the top class, Grand Sport. There were some naysayers that thought that the adoption of the GT4, the global formula for that, oh, that's the end of the championship. It's been far from that, and the growth has been extraordinary, closer to 30 cars than 20 most weekends, and the racing has been outstanding.
The evolution here is a byproduct of just the electronic sophistication of today's road car. The opportunity for even the most resourced team to go take a street car from the junkyard, a body in white, a new car from the dealer, and convert it into a race car simply is behind us. It's not possible, and for that reason, the decision was made to adopt the global GT4 regulations. You see the numbers, you know, the car counts in 17 versus the car counts today. Clearly, this was the right decision to make. I think the teams have already transitioned over. You hear a lot of positives, and it just continues to grow. The same is now going to apply with the wind down of ST. We've got some great competition going on this season in that class, but it will come to an end at Road Atlanta in October to be replaced full-time by the TCR category, which is obviously out there racing already. Numbers continue to grow. And if history is our guide, I think you'll see the same type of growth in car count as we go forward with TCR and GS in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Again, as we've already mentioned, all of these races, as they have been, will also be on NBCSN, a 2-hour cut down that'll be a week or two after each live race. The live races streamed live. You can still do that just as you can now on the Imsa app. So a lot of good continuity here, but some new names.
Yeah, and if you aren't sure, if you're not here at the track and you're not sure, that race will be live wherever you are. No blocks, no breaks, just the action from here at Road America later on the weekend on Saturday. Check imsa.com for details. 2019 schedule. Straight away, I notice that we've got 2 4-hour races again. They've been very popular in the last season, and we're back at Daytona for the Friday 4-hour race and Watkins Glen as part of the Salem 6-hour weekend, a real festival of motorsport that's becoming now.
Just as was the case when we reviewed the WeatherTech Championship schedule a moment ago, no change here. The Michelin Pilot Challenge will be stitched together to the WeatherTech weekends. And as you've said, we'll open up with a 4-hour race, do it again at Watkins Glen, the rest of them the traditional 2-hour format. So very powerful schedule here for that category.
Yeah. And great racing. I mean, I'm already looking forward to the race at the weekends. Let's move on now, Scott, if we may, to the major championship. And we have another thanks to say, and this one is very deep because Tequila Patron have had a huge impact and a huge influence on endurance sports car racing in North America for quite some time.
Yeah, these goodbyes aren't getting any easier for me. This one really stings. Having been a part of this alliance, which, believe it or not, goes back 14 years, one of the longest running true partnerships, I think, in motorsport. We could not say thank you enough to Ed Brown, to Stephanie Rivera, and to Scott Sharp as well, I remember the first phone call when Scott reached out to me and said, I'd like to meet with you at the track, and I'm bringing a sponsor. And I think all of us in this room, when you look back at especially those that were part of the American Le Mans Series side of the equation, and most recently all of us here with the Endurance Cup and what Tequila Patron has brought to sports car racing as a whole, I want to lead this round of applause.
And from a fan's point of view as well, I know they've been fan favourites with the great livery and their interaction at the racetracks. So that means another name change and another new logo to talk about for the new Endurance Cup.
Yeah, this is, I don't think it's new information for anybody, but the logo is. Love the logo already. We've taken some of the elements and carried them over from the previous, but that's really the only, the outlines of the tracks is the only carryover. But I think this logo will very quickly become a fan favorite as well. And no other changes. You know, it's one of those don't fix it, it's not broken. The Endurance Cup will continue to roll on. And with Michelin behind it, you know it's only going one way, up.
Can't wait for that. 4 tracks are the same. That's the key point here, in case anybody didn't quite catch that. Let's move on to the Imsa WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as a whole. Well, it's only, what? We're not even through the full second season of the new formula of the prototype category. That's a very short time in anything, and particularly in motorsport. It's already captured the imagination of fans worldwide, of OEMs, manufacturers who have come to it and supported to it. Got to be happy with that, first of all, Scott.
I would say the embrace of our championship, and in particular in the prototype category, has exceeded even our highest expectations. When you look at the manufacturers, the teams, the drivers who are involved in both the DPI class and those that are competing with the LMP2 cars, it's exceptional. And it's on a global scale. I think it's a benchmark example that people point to say, you know, that's the one we want to be like more. But it's time for an evolution. And we've learned a lot in this first season and a half. We've, again, taken a lot of feedback from the stakeholders on in every category here in terms of team owners, manufacturers, constructors, even promoters have weighed in on this. And you can see what's going to happen here. It's been rumored, it's been speculated. Tonight we're going to confirm that what is currently a single prototype class with both DPI and LMP2 competing for the same podium, the same overall win, is going to evolve into 2 separate classes. So DPI and LMP2 beginning in 2019, 2 separate classes. What's that going to enable us to do? Well, for starters, we'll be able to elevate the DPI performance back up to a level closer to, if not at, the original level of performance that was envisioned when the program was launched. It will also enable us to position the LMP2 class as a true Pro-Am category. So DPI, professional teams, factory-backed, all-pro drivers, LMP2, Pro-Am. So the same driver configuration, the same Pro-Am configuration that we operate in with our GTD category in GT racing will apply to our LMP2 class. So you can see you know, how this will work out. There's some more details here that I can share with you. Driver combinations, we will, as is the case in GTD, allow a single a platinum driver eligibility there. So if there is an affiliation where that makes sense, that will still be allowed. The reasoning behind that is everybody we've consulted in this category says there is no difference between a gold and a platinum, so why would you segregate one of them out? Okay. You see the driver pairing makeups. Simon Hodgson and his team will work to not only provide minimum drive times, but in this case, there'll be more emphasis put on a maximum drive time for the gold and the platinums. So you can see in the LMP2 category, it is definitely going to be an emphasis on Pro-Am. The Jim Truman Award, eligible to every silver and bronze driver that is competing. What this means is the highest point scoring silver or bronze driver over the course of the season will get that automatic invitation and entry to the following year, 24 Hours of Le Mans. IMSA awards it to the driver. The driver can then utilize it with the team that they are currently competing with in IMSA, or perhaps an alternative. It'll be up to them. But very exciting opportunity here with LMP2 evolving, DPI going back to a level that I think was in the original vision.
What about the car specifications, Scott? Because clearly, if people have to keep changing their equipment, it's expensive. We talked about date equity. Well, we're talking about equipment equity as well.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk recently about what the ACO is doing with the World Endurance Championship, and if you've heard about their super season, which really is, it's an 18-month season. They have announced that their next generation prototype will break cover. They call it 2020, but it's really the first race of 2021. We have subsequently announced that our cars, the homologations have been extended through the 2021 season. So the first time you will see new content in prototype will be the 2022. So Rolex 24, January 2022 for us. Now, why is that important? Well, if you currently own one of these cars, you know that you now have an additional 3 years of runway ahead of you to use that and utilize that investment to amortize that car. It also means that if somebody is curious, interested, ready to jump in, you've got 3 solid seasons ahead of you, no changes. Those cars will be exactly as they are today, homologated, and I think it's good news for all involved.
And for those who perhaps don't know, who aren't sitting here in this room, because I'm sure you all do, there is a slight disconnect because of the way the WEC are going to effectively a winter into summer season, or at least an autumn, fall into winter season, and then through into the following year's Le Mans. So that gives a bit of a sort of a 6 months overlap where cars that will not have anywhere to race in Europe will actually be able to come and race here the second half of the season. I'm just working this through in my head here.
I can see the gears turning, and you're exactly right. If you think about the second half of the season, which for us begins at Watkins Glen with a sail in 6 hours, and yeah, it's a bit of a thrash to come out of Le Mans and get to Watkins Glen, but our teams have proven that it can be done. And yeah, there's a full second half with a pretty powerful finish there on network TV, culminating with the Motul Petit Le Mans. And if you're a European team that has an LMP2 car that's good to go, welcome Matt is out.
Yeah, good, like it. GT Le Mans, the works class, the OEM class. We've got 4 manufacturers at the moment, both with all with 2 cars each, providing 8 cars which are quite often just blink of an eye apart. And again, today in qualifying, we saw, or in practice rather, we saw a bit of a shake-up in what was going on right at the end. What are we going to see for 2019 and beyond?
Steady as she goes. Just like the calendar, no changes. This, we believe, is an example where not only our own opinion, but third-party authoritative opinion saying that the GTLM competition in the WeatherTech Championship is the global benchmark of the most professional, the most competitive GT racing on the planet. So don't change it. That's the good news. And I think there's some new content coming, but we've got some homologation details that we can share here as well. If you look at the slide, you know, again, the WEC is going to be introducing new content in that half-season time frame. We will extend through 2019, so new GTLM, GTE content in the WeatherTech Championship as of the 2020 season.
Right, so that's at the Rolex 24 Daytona onwards for 2020. So again, that's a 6-month window of opportunity for any European teams who have what's called LMGTEs over there, Pro Arms, to be able to come over and try and win big races.
Good luck with that.
Okay, okay, that seems reasonable. GT Daytona, GT3, the formula adopted a couple of seasons ago now. Growth and more growth, competitive, excellent racing. 2019, just around the corner. I've got to tell you, Scott, there is one particular topic of conversation. I'm picking my words very carefully here to get into this. That probably takes up as much of my time as anything else. Twitter and Facebook at airports when I'm sitting waiting to go home, and that's driver rankings.
Well, if you've been wondering, okay, when's the news happen, the time has come. Because whereas schedule, no change, GTLM, no change, we're going to shake it up in GTD. And as you just referenced, there has always been a roar of conversation about driver ratings and who's professional and who's not, and who's getting paid and who's not. And I will say that Imsa will do we'll take this head on to resolve this once and for all. We're not abandoning the FIA rating system. That's not at all part of the plan. But if you see what's being listed here is the creation of a driver evaluation committee. If you look at the names and the titles of who's involved, this is the brain trust of IMSA's competition department, the people that live and breathe this sport on a daily basis. They're as close to the drivers as you can be. And the mission here is to properly ensure that the correct rating is assigned to each driver. And frankly, we don't care who signs the front of the check or the back of the check. This will be data-driven based on a driver's performance, period, full stop. And the goal of this evaluation committee will be to arm our representative who sits on the driver evaluation committee of the FIA, Paul Walter, to give him the data to compel the right decision. Now, there's an asterisk at the bottom of this slide that is actually exists today, and it's a provision that the FIA has built in, not just for IMSA, but for every championship around the world, that if for some reason they feel that there's been an error, that there's a driver that is not consistent with what their performance is, we have the ability, the autonomy to go in and make a correction. We hope that is few and far between. It's a rare occurrence, but the opportunity is there. The reality is we're going to get this fixed. And I'm going to say the phrase that everybody wants to hear, and that is the Super Silvers are going to become, to the best of our ability, a thing of the past.
Okay. What about the other sporting regulations as far as GTD are concerned? Broadly similar then to LMP2, a Pro-Am category.
Exactly. As I alluded a moment ago, the LMP2 regs have been borrowed from GTD. There's that platinum driver again. You see how we will balance and put a maximum lid on the amount of time that the pro, the gold, the platinum drivers can compete. And in this case, it's the Bob Aiken Award. Same criteria, highest rated points earning silver or bronze driver gets the golden ticket, the automatic entry to go to Le Mans. In the case of a tie, because it has happened, we have a lot of driver pairings that, they're in lockstep all season long. In that case, we'll go back and look at the amount of time that each driver spent in the car, who delivered the goods for the most amount of time, and that's who gets the ticket.
I like it. You've had your backside in the seat longest, you're off to Le Mans, mate.
Indeed.
Okay, that works for me. Opportunity to develop some new ideas as well in GTD because of what we've been talking about that really underlines the role of the AM in Pro-Am.
The goal here is to retrench GTD as a Pro-Am category, and you see some of these examples in practice. We will do to the best of our ability with each event schedule to carve out some additional time so that silver and bronze drivers get some additional time prior to qualifying. And those that are able to participate in that or do elect to participate will get an extra set of dry tires. They can use those at their discretion. They can qualify with them, they can use them in the race, it's up to them. Wow. So if you move to the next category of qualifying, it will only be bronze and silver drivers that will be allowed to qualify. And then those same bronze and silver drivers must start the race. So that first stint is intended to give GTD competitors an opportunity to race among their peers. After that first stint, the strategy is up to the teams, it's up to them, but this will give them an opportunity to race themselves against like-minded, like-skilled peers. And again, this is all feedback that has come from the GTD paddock, the stakeholders that have made their priorities known to us. We've gone through and applied as many as possible. You see the evidence here today.
I get to see the next slide before you guys do, and I'm looking at a slide that I didn't see when we went through this earlier today, and here it is, the Imsa WeatherTech Sprint Cup. You've dropped this one on me, Scott. Tell me.
You got to have something in the hopper here. Even if we have another example, there's always been speculation, and will they, won't they? We'll put the speculation to rest tonight and say that we are launching, as of this evening, for 2019, what will be known as the Imsa WeatherTech Sprint Cup. And before I go further, David McNeil at WeatherTech, thank you for making this possible for us to do. What this means, and this is probably second only to the driver rating, was a request from the paddock. Give us an opportunity to win something meaningful within the WeatherTech platform, within the IMSA GT racing, that doesn't require a full season or that endurance cup option that already exists. Those endurance races, when you think about the first two races of the year, the Rolex 24, the Mobil 112, in many respects, that could be as much as 40, 50% of a full season budget just in those two races. So this is, I hate to use the phrase, that this is an affordable alternative because these are still big numbers, we all know that. But if we go to the next slide, you'll see what this means. And work with me here for a minute because what this entails is a 7-race championship. And this is not the logo. This is simply a placeholder so that we could identify which races are connected with this new Sprint Cup. But if you're competing in the WeatherTech Championship, you will be a part of a 10-race championship, or 11-race championship, depending on the class that you're in. If you're in the Sprint Cup, it's 7. Another request we had of full season competitors in GTD was, please reduce the race count by 1. Give us a 10-race season for the whole championship, the WeatherTech Championship. Easier said than done, but here's what we have done. If you're competing in the WeatherTech Championship, the full championship, the Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix will not be a requirement on the schedule.
For GTD?
For GTD.
Right, okay.
If you're competing in the WeatherTech Sprint Cup, the Detroit Grand Prix is on the calendar.
Right.
Now, does that mean if you're a full season competitor, you're not allowed to enter your GTD car at Detroit? Absolutely not. You are more than welcome. In fact, we expect that the majority of our full season competitors will go to Detroit, because not only are they then in position to win the WeatherTech Championship as a whole, but they're also still in contention to win the Sprint Cup.
But even with a brief look at this, Scott, I can see that this gives the opportunity for people, instead of starting at the start of the year, to start in May and to finish in September. It's kind of a mirror image of the Endurance Cup. It's the opposite side of the coin, if you will, to that.
It's exactly right. You know, and again, this is feedback from the paddock where, you know, if we could only have a racing championship, a cup, so to speak, configured this way, it would make a big difference, and it would give us the opportunity to participate where today we don't.
But there's still a GTD Endurance Cup?
Absolutely.
Right, and that's at the 4 races that we discussed earlier for the full WeatherTech?
Nothing's changed.
Right.
Yep, it's an addition, it's incremental, and as you can see, the Endurance Cup, we've already covered this off, but it's just a way to kind of frame up the next slide, which puts all of it together. So if you're competing for the WeatherTech Championship, you see what's required. If you're competing for the WeatherTech Sprint Cup, you see those events. If you're going for the Michelin Tire Endurance Cup, you see those events.
Right.
So if you struggle with too much information on a single slide, take a look at this because it really sums it up very succinctly. 10 races for the WeatherTech Championship, 7 races for the WeatherTech Sprint Cup, 4 for the Michelin Endurance Cup.
Okay. Pays your money, it takes your choice.
Varying degrees of budget, varying degrees of commitment, time on the calendar, et cetera, et cetera. I won't say something for everyone, but in this space, we've added some really interesting options, and hopefully it's well received.
Options and choices. Okay. Let's take a look at how that fits into. That's all GTD we were talking about there, and specifically for the ability to miss that Belle Isle race. This is how the season looks out. There's nothing new about what we're looking at here. We know that in previous years that there has been a variety of the classes at certain events. I noticed straight away the 2 GT festival events, if you will, at Lime Rock Park in July and August at VIR. Broadly similar, what that is, and again, all these details will be on imsa.com. That's nothing that new. That's pretty much what we've done in the past.
No, it's a graphic depiction now that we've split the prototypes into 2 classes. GTD, GTLM has always been that way. You know, those 2 GT-only weekends at Lime Rock and at VIR have proven to be very successful. It gives our GT competitors an opportunity to be the stars of the weekend and been extremely well attended 2 weeks ago at Lime Rock, and we know that'll be the case going into VIR. Another thing I wanted to add, just when you think about the NBC television and how things will play out, the WeatherTech Sprint Cup will have its season finale at WeatherTech Raceway live on NBC.
Yeah,
so that May to September Sprint Cup season, very efficient and a spectacular way to finish up there in Monterey. And then the WeatherTech Championship finishing up at Motul Petit Le Mans Road Atlanta, live on NBC again. So some really powerful finishes to the season.
Scott, we've given the audience here and further afield a lot of information about what's going on. Please digest it. As I say, go to imsa.com for all the details. It'll be available there for you in a form that you can reprint, etc. Television, digital, we've talked about that. There has been recently an opportunity for another form of exposure for IMSA. a quick word.
We're very fortunate to have a core media that follows us religiously, and occasionally we get a chance to step out of the core media and get into the mainstream. There's an opportunity coming that ironically is tied to a book and the movie being made on the book, and of course I'm referring to The Art of Racing in the Rain. And rather than try to drone on and explain it to you, we've got a pretty impactful video here that we can tee up, and I think you'll understand what I'm speaking about.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Action, action, action. All right, guys, we're going to do this. Will be the last take, please, if we can let we have Dave around.
I read the book, was very moved by it, and then acquired the rights. And it's been over a 10-year journey to get to this point to finally be in production. For me, it was really important to get Jeff involved, to make sure that the credibility of the racing series and the world was depicted properly on screen.
My perspective is always just not to be observer. I've really been a participant in racing, kind of putting people in the middle of things, giving them the true life experiences of what it's like to put a car on the edge, run against the elements as we do in the rain here.
I have a certain responsibility to take care of the series, the drivers and the teams and the manufacturers, and to depict this in a way that they're going to be proud of. At the same time, servicing the story. It's actually a new muscle to be flexing, and I'm really enjoying it. Although I'd like to be in the car, too.
Both of us would.
Roll it.
We want to portray it through a series that has these natural stepping stones from Continental to GTD to prototypes. So it kind of offered everything car-wise for us to tell that story. But we, at some point, had to drop into this event and really show it, and it's been awesome to be here.
All right, here we go, guys. Pictures up, please.
It's really challenging because we have a specific time that we can use the cars and the field and the track.
There's an event going on, so we have to be out of the way when we're out of the way and in the middle of it when we can be. For me, it also adds extra pressure. You're shooting something for Patrick, you have to kind of up your game. And I always feel like, you know, certainly in racing, I'm shooting for my peers. Therefore, I got to be a little up the level and be something that those guys will go, whoa, you know, that was really a good insight into our world.
Tremendous support up here with the track and with Imsa and the teams. Turner, Wright, and the WeatherTech guys here have been really wonderful. And just the spirit within the community is something that I've always really appreciated. And to be able to work with them and their enthusiasm and ours has been really quite satisfying.
Cut. All right, guys, thank you.
That's pretty cool. We've just seen the DVD extras and the movie's not even out yet. That's fantastic stuff. Patrick Dempsey didn't have to bring that to Imsa.
No, we are so fortunate. And before I go on, I know that there's many of you in the room here, teams, drivers, staff that contributed to making this possible. We stretched a lot of people to the breaking point up at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I want to give my acknowledgement to David Pettit. He took the lead on this, and it's a thankless job, you know, late nights, early mornings for weeks and weeks and weeks to pull it off. This is huge. I can't overemphasize it. Even the director of the movie said, you guys do realize that this is a $100 million infomercial for Imsa and WeatherTech Championship. Milo Ventimiglia, the star, the driver, Kevin Costner, the voice of the dog. This is not a small budget independent film that's going to be in the coffee shop, festivals. Yeah.
You're starring in it, aren't you?
Well, I've got... Physically, I look so much like Patrick that it's
Patrick who?
Stewart.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Ah, make it so, number one.
Yeah.
Very good.
So no, I was nowhere
Sure, I
near.
want to brag about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, a 70-year-old guy. I think it's the hairline that gives it away.
Okay.
No, big opportunity for us here, and the mainstream. You're going to finally be able to sit on the airplane, and people are going to ask you what you do for a living. You can reference the movie, and they go,
Cool.
"I know what you're talking about."
When can we see it? I want to see it now.
Haven't announced anything formal. I've been told third or fourth quarter 2019. So add another very significant element to 19.
It's interesting you should talk about 2019 like that, because we've been talking obviously about next year, looking ahead to 2019. Clearly, a lot of things will look the same, a lot will be modified a little bit, and we're adding something quite extraordinary for anyone to be celebrating a golden anniversary, let alone a race series, but it is 50 years of Imsa next year.
It's amazing. When you think about for any business, for any enterprise of any description to make it through 50 years, and think of the ups and downs, the highs and lows of what Imsa has experienced during that time, I think there was many opportunities where it just could have gone away, but it didn't. It persevered, and here we are 50 years later. I think it's a testament to John and Peggy Bishop and Bill France Sr., the foundation that they laid so long ago that has enabled us to be here 50 years later. This is going to be a season-long celebration. It'll kick off at the Rolex. There'll be 4 cornerstone events that'll take place over the course of the season. You're going to see, well, keep talking, John. I'm going to show you a little sample here of what we've got going.
Well, I think you've got everybody's attention here, Scott, to be honest.
No, it doesn't go any further than this, thank God. But, I did want to... full merchandise, a new logo. What you're seeing now is, or soon will here, is the first element that's going to come out will be a book, a 50th anniversary book that will actually be making its debut later this month at the Monterey Reunion. So on Saturday, which is the big day at the road races there at WeatherTech Raceway, Scott Pruitt, Hurley Haywood, 2 of the most iconic drivers of IMSA history will be there. Mark Raffoff, equally iconic. We'll launch this book. We went to the best to get this. We went to Fanner Communications, the best writers, the best photo archives. This is a keepsake that everyone will want, and you will not be disappointed when you thumb through this book. It's that good.
And it's strictly limited edition. There'll not be a reprint. So when they're gone, they're gone. So if you want one, get one as soon as you can. Available presumably on imsa.com and through merchandising?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be a relatively small supply of books available in Monterey. If you want to order one, you can go through imsa.com, and Creighton, who is our merchandise vendor, we'd be more than happy to set you up. This is another project that has taken on it's epic proportions. You can imagine all that is entailed with organizing and executing. Rich Merrill has taken the point on this, and Rich, I can tell you from my perspective, and I think all of us, you've done an outstanding job, and we're really, really looking forward to how things are going to play out. This is going to be a lot of fun, so thank you, Rich.
Well done, Rich. 50 years, it's an extraordinary story. How does a race series endure for 50 years? Well, like this. Watch the video.
Look at the turnout for this race, the quality of the competition and the quality of the drivers. How do you rate your progress in making IMSA endurance racing the worldwide spectacle that I know you want it to be?
We got a VCR for Christmas, Dave, and we played an old Camel GT promotion tape. And I couldn't believe how far we've come. I'm too close to it. I couldn't believe the difference between 1982 and now.
Well, I think 20 years ago, I don't think many European racing teams believed that racing was very competitive over here. And slowly but surely, more and more European teams are coming over here, and more drivers are coming over here because it's actually more competitive here than it is there.
There were a lot of great American drivers in it, American cars, but not too many European cars. And then as it progressed over the years, of course, the Europeans started to realize it was a great series, and in fact was probably better than we were having in Europe.
I literally didn't really know racing existed at that point, and so I go to this race and my mind was blown. 3 TV channels, there was maybe 2 races a year on TV. I mean, I didn't know this world existed at all, and so my life was changed from that point on.
I was a young boy. He was an immigrant from Germany. His dream was to come and race in sports car racing in America. They went to Daytona, and my eyes were this big when I saw how amazing sports car racing was.
You're a young punk, and you're wanting to be out there so bad, and you're seeing these superstars, guys that you've wanted to be like for so long. In the back of your mind is, man, can I do that? Can I be one of those guys?
I love IMSA, and it's been such a huge part of my life, of my career, and of all of my achievement. Whether it was the Rolex 24 Hours and all those victories, or the 60 victories that I've gotten along the way, or just my namesake in general is always going to be known, tied to IMSA and road racing.
As a family, we've got so much history here. It's like, it's like coming home every weekend when we go to the track. I remember being in victory lane with him for the 96 Rolex when he won that.
By far my favorite IMSA memory has to be winning the Daytona 24 Hour with
with my brother and my dad and Max, and then going on to win the championship with Jordan.
You know, winning the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1981, winning Sebring in '87. You know, and I look back on those days very fondly. It was great racing, and it was a pleasure going to those races.
There are two things that separate IMSA, and that's the spectacle and the nature of American motorsport in general. Combine that with old school hardcore racetracks that don't allow errors.
The track limit things, that's not a problem anymore because you go off the circuit, you're on the grass, or you're in the wall.
IMSA has always represented this blend of all factory racing, big names and huge teams, blended with a traditional sports car pro-am category. That blend is what has always been through the DNA of this awesome championship.
You know, it's great to have American sports car racing as big as it is now. You know, it goes back to the purity of what IMSA is. And
things become special when they have history, whether it be Sebring or Daytona. Those are big events that have been won by the greats.
All the major results that I had in my career was here in the States.
It's that challenge, it's that battle. It's raw racing. It's exactly, I think, what the fans want, and it's what everybody involved kind of wants.
As I said to somebody last year, you just watch IMSA. It's going to show the world how to run a sports car program. And sure enough, that's what they're doing.
We are seeing, well, I saw it when you took your jacket off there, but for the first time, we're seeing the IMSA 1969 to 50th anniversary logo.
This is the official logo, and they look simple and finished when they're in their final form, but as you can all imagine, it was quite a process to get to this. There's a lot of symbolism that's in this logo. The angle is identical to the original apex arrow. That's, for those of you that are math experts, that's a 27-degree slant.
I could see that.
Yeah, I knew you knew that. Of course, 50, the golden anniversary, the red, white, black, all of those colors iconic, the laurels indicating victory, integrity. I think over time this also will become a very popular logo, and you're going to see a lot of it over the next year. The car liveries, uniforms, merchandise, you're going to like it. So.
Yes, absolutely. So 2019 is special for so many different reasons, not least the 50th anniversary. But what we've heard tonight, Scott, is 2019 is looking at stability in key areas, change where needed, development by consensus, and an unprecedented opportunity for teams, drivers, fans, and we're all fans, wherever they are in the world.
True that, all of the above. I want to say, and it sounds like a cliche line or a throwaway set of words, that the moon, the sun, and the stars are aligning. But think about it for a minute. As we come into 2019, we've got this rock-solid schedule of the best events, the best promoters, the most iconic historic venues and events, all stability. We're not announcing some and canceling others and bouncing over here and bouncing over there. We're rock solid. We've got a brand new 6-year top-tier television relationship with NBC that's going to take us to another level, not just on network, but across the board. We have a brand new official tire partner that is going to make this the core of their marketing platform across North America. And of course, we have a 50-year anniversary that's coming, coupled with a mainstream, major market movie release that'll take us into homes and into people and expose us to people like never before. When you couple all of what's in this paddock here this weekend and you align it with what's just been described and what's coming, it's an amazing set of circumstances that I think we can all truly benefit from. We've got a big season still ahead of us. We're going to have a spectacular event here this weekend. We're going to finish up 2018 with our partners as strong and as powerful and as successful as we know how. But when we put the final checkered flag down on 18, think of what's coming in 19. It really, I can't say enough about it. Before I sign off, I want to acknowledge a couple of people that have worked tirelessly to make this night and this content possible. Helen Pardee, who's always sneaking in the background, and Rebecca Rosker. In brief, we couldn't do it without them, and once again, just an exceptional job. As John said at the very beginning, we realize it's a busy weekend, especially it's a Friday night. We know you've got a lot of tug of war on your time, and we so appreciate not only that you're here tonight, that's a given, but that you're invested with us and you're on the same end of the rope pulling with us. So for those of you competing this weekend, here's to a safe and successful outcome, and for everyone else, thanks for being here in general.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scott Atherton. Let's look forward already to 2019, a year that embodies everything that is IMSA. Thank you and good night.